There comes a time in every person's life when you realise it's not about doing what you are told, but doing what you know is right for you. Let us take a journey of learning and discovery with the world's most successful people who are living the life of their dreams, walking through life using their inner wisdom and being of service to others. Forget exams, grades and test scores. What is your purpose? As we let go of what we think should be and learn from our elders to gain knowledge, inspiration and a true sense of who we are. What are your dreams? Does your life have meaning? Are you living a life of significance? Let's talk with today's guest. Hello and welcome as we spend some more time together on the Learning on Fire podcast. Today I'm talking to Kate Erickson. Hi Kate, thanks for joining me and let's explore the journey of who you are.
Awesome. Thanks so much for inviting me on, Mark. I'm very excited to be here and thankful for those tuning in. So, if we start with my journey, I always kind of like to say that I was brought up very traditionally in the States. I grew up in Southern California. Beautiful, beautiful place to live and very grateful to have spent most of my life there, up to this point. But when I say traditionally, I mean that, I went to school, I graduated high school, went to a good college, was kind of under the impression that I was going to be majoring in something and that whatever I majored in, that's what I would do for the rest of my life. I didn't really know what entrepreneurship was all about. And I found myself at the age of, let's say early 20s and thought, there's got to be something more. I don't believe that this is what life has to be like. And so I kind of started going exploring from there. And my journey has really taken off since that time.
And tell us a little bit about sort of what your life does look like now compared to what it was from when you were growing up. Because I know, because you've been part of this amazing journey I've been on as a podcaster, but in terms of what your lifestyle looks like and how that's different, obviously, from that growing up experience.
For sure. So today I live with my boyfriend and business partner, John Lee Dumas, in Puerto Rico. And we chose to make the move to Puerto Rico to kind of kick ourselves out of our comfort zone, start traveling a bit more because now we run a fully location independent business and have the lifestyle freedom that I didn't know I dreamed of, but holy cow, I'm just really embracing it. So grateful for it, loving it every single day. And Mark, really being just really blessed that I had the opportunity to do this because like I said, I didn't grow up knowing about entrepreneurship, but that's the road that I started following and thank goodness I did. So it allows us to travel whenever we want, make certainly a big impact through the work that we do. We have a podcast and some online training courses, get to meet amazing, fabulous people like yourself. And it's just really a wonderful journey that we've been on.
And I really think that it's a really key thing to take away from all of us listening is that we have this sort of almost preconditioned idea of what it is that our life is going to look like, partly based on maybe our parents and our upbringing and also based on what we're told at school. And to hear, I think, conversations with people who also had that same kind of introduction to life and their idea of how their life might look like, but then to suddenly think, there's more to it than that. But not only have that idea, but actually to speak to someone who has fully achieved that, like you say, in terms of being location free and being able to run your business from anywhere in the world and travel around and meet so many people. It really gives people a great insight to the fact that it's not just people talking about this sort of thing. It really can be done, and you're sort of living proof of that.
Yes, definitely. And I wish that I would have been introduced to it way, way, way sooner. I wish that instead of, I remember when I was in high school, there was a project that we did in class and they gave everybody a newspaper and they had us look at the investment section and they had us draw out a budget, I believe it was. And we were able to allocate a certain amount of money to investing in, public companies, stocks, basically. And I thought then wow, I don't understand any of this. I have no idea what we're doing. This is certainly not something that I've learned in math class before. And I thought, what a strange exercise to be doing when nobody's really ever given us background on what any of this means. So I appreciated the exercise, but wow, it would have been really cool if somebody would have said, maybe you don't have to go to college, or, maybe there's something else out there besides, the corporate world and climbing the corporate ladder. And, that's the type of stuff that hopefully these days in school, they're kind of opening up to, and, letting people know that there's choices. I guess that was the biggest thing for me is, I just thought that there was one path, and that was never a bad thing. My parents, I grew up like so supported and so loved, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with any way that I grew up. I loved it. But you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. I think that's absolutely key. And that's really, you've just sort of epitomized really why this podcast has come to fruition. It's just that ability just to, there's something else out there that it might just take my interest, or I might just hear someone say something which lights my fire a little bit, and from there anything is possible. And then, like, as we know, with the internet being the heart of everything these days, you can find any of those things that you want to look for, which I think is just absolutely fantastic. So what was valuable about your actual school experience?
Definitely just learning communication styles, learning what it's like to work in a group. I would say just the camaraderie and the relationships built through, I played a lot of sports in school. So teamwork, and that was certainly, I feel, really shaped the person that I am, who I am, and how I value relationships and friendships. I also think that there's something to be said of the structure that's taught in school, the accountability of showing up where you're supposed to show up, and, following through on commitments, like having assignments due and having to follow through with that, or facing consequences. By the same token, I think that there's kind of a line to be drawn where, if you give someone the freedom to, I guess that's kind of what college is for, huh? When I went to college, it was kind of like, oh, wow, nobody's looking over my shoulder anymore and making me do this kind of stuff. I actually have to figure it out myself. And that was certainly a very valuable experience as well. So I would definitely say just communication, friendships, teamwork, kind of figuring out what it means to be around other personalities, maybe some people who have a much stronger personality than me, people who have, not as strong a personality as I do, and kind of figuring out how you fit into the world in many ways.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome, and I think definitely that idea of communication and working together, I think, is really key, and also that idea of working and the accountability. I definitely know that from being self-employed. Being only accountable to yourself or having an accountability partner to support you is a really key thing. And I think that transition probably between school and college and actually suddenly being on your own doing that is a key indication in terms of just stepping up, isn't it? Just growing up and just actually a slight shift in the way things work. And I guess carrying on from that, I mean, which teachers do you remember from your school days, and why do you remember them specifically?
It's funny. So when I went to college, my freshman and my sophomore year, I hadn't declared a major. And I remember going into my counselor's office like sometime during sophomore year, and them saying like, hey, if you're on the 4-year plan, you need to declare a major, or else you're not going to have enough time. Like, you literally won't have enough time to fulfill all the credits necessary to be able to call something a major, because, you have to have a certain amount of credits in certain areas. And the reason that I kept holding off on that is because I still had that thought in my mind that what I majored in was going to have such a massive impact on what I did for the rest of my life. And I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I was very hesitant to choose that major, but I ended up choosing English. And it was strictly because my English teachers were like the people that I resonated most with. When I was in English class and like studying with those professors, they just had such a profound effect on me in terms of, I loved the idea that, gosh, I don't know. I felt like I had a couple English teachers that were just like so encouraging of what I thought, or how I interpreted literature, or why I wrote in a certain style. And other subjects weren't like that. Like in math, my teacher told me I was wrong if I didn't have the exact formula written out, right? Like that's a very black and white thing. Literature, on the other hand, how you read a text or how you review a text or how you write, that is fluid and it can be many different things. And I really liked that. Again, I just resonated with that so much. And my teachers, my English professors and my English teachers were such a huge part of that. Again, always very encouraging. And I remember one of my professors, his name was Dr. Thurber. He was a college English professor of mine. And I remember going back to him even after I graduated. And like, I just can't describe a more supportive, interested person. And that really meant a lot to me at that age because I felt really, really lost. Like I didn't know where I was headed. And for him to be there and to show interest and to support me, that was a big deal.
Yeah, and I think it's that authenticity, isn't it? It goes beyond someone just trying to teach you English or maths or whatever the subject is. It's actually the idea of the story behind the person and that willing to give whatever they can to support you and whatever that happens to be. And I think that really is a key thing. And I think that's often what speaks to people as much as the words of wisdom. It's often the way that they make you feel. And I think that's a really key thing as we go through our education years. Who did you admire when you were young?
I really admired my grandmother a lot. And I want to say that it's because she held like such a strength and a confidence while never acting out of like who she was. Like she was always very true to herself, never holding back, but like wasn't afraid to be herself. And I spent a lot of years in school where I did try to be somebody else because I either wanted to fit in or I didn't want people to make fun of me or for any number of reasons that you act other than the way that you are when you're growing up. And I just remember looking to my grandmother and being like, wow, she's not an extrovert. She was not so many things that people would envision as like this strong, confident person, yet she still exuded those things. And I thought that's really special that she doesn't have to be somebody she's not to still hold strength and confidence. And that has come back to me throughout my life time and time again, because strength and confidence are two things that I've struggled with a lot over the years. And especially becoming an entrepreneur, Mark, I'm sure as you can relate, going off on your own and suddenly being responsible for creating something that impacts people and wondering whether or not anyone's listening or wondering whether you're making the impact you want to make, it's really tough. It's really challenging. And so yeah, that's why I really looked up to her. And that's why I thought, I hope that someday I can be like that too. I want to always be authentic and, true to who I am, but I still want to have that strength and that confidence that I always saw in her.
I think that's great. And I think that amount of impact that someone has when it just comes from them being who they are, then, like you say, that authenticity about you being secure enough to be who you are as well. And it's that kind of thing that we often learn from people, not just by what they say, but just what they do and also how your relationship with them, I think, which actually helps you grow because you can identify that in a non-verbal kind of way. And I think to have that ongoing relationship, especially when it's someone within your family, I think, like I say, that it has an impact far beyond anything that most people could articulate in that kind of way, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
Most definitely.
What was the best piece of advice you've ever been given and who gave it to you?
Oh, that would have to be my dad. I remember, so Mark, when I left my corporate job, I tried to start my own business, like completely from scratch, had no idea what I was doing. I just learned what entrepreneurship was. I went off on my own. I struggled and hustled for 6 months. It didn't work out. I didn't get any clients. I wasn't making any money. I had responsibilities. I had to go back to corporate America. And then I had the opportunity to leave corporate America again. And it was either going to be to try and pick up my business again and give it another go and really try and make that happen, or to join John, my boyfriend at the time and still, and now business partner. So you know which choice I made. But that was a really, really, really tough decision. I felt like I was caught between this really like self-doubt stage where I wanted to prove to myself and to others that I could make it work. It was embarrassing and heartbreaking that I had to go back to corporate America, that I couldn't run my own business. There was so much that I wanted in this other opportunity for John and I to become partners, to pick up on the vision that he had, which I absolutely loved. Impacting and inspiring people to become entrepreneurs. I absolutely love that. And so I remember calling my dad up and saying, Dad, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm definitely quitting my job, but I don't know if I should go it on my own and really like prove to myself that I can make this work, or join John on the team at Entrepreneurs on Fire. And he said, Kate, follow your gut. Like, whatever decision you make is going to be the right decision, because even if it doesn't work out, you're going to learn a lesson from it and you're going to be able to make a different choice from there. And like, ever since, trusting my gut is like not something that anybody has really ever said to me directly, but has impacted so much of how I make decisions now. Like, if it feels wrong in my gut, I don't do it. And it's served me over and over and over again.
I think it's really, really great advice, because often we end up in this scenario where our brains are saying one thing, the logical thing is this, but actually deep inside, whatever our path is and whatever our journey is, it can often take us completely out of our comfort zone. And I really like the aspect of that it's, even if it doesn't work out in a way that you think it might do or you'd like it to, you still learn something, you're still growing, you're still actually making the best choice for you, because actually you never unlearn the things that you've gone through. And I just think that's really, really, really valuable and really insightful and very supportive then, because it takes a little while, I think, sometimes to really sort of give yourself enough time to really feel what your gut is, because it's quite hard to separate that sort of inner strength, isn't it, and what your mind's doing, I think. But if you can find a way of doing that, whether it's, I guess, meditation or spending time on your own or chatting with family, whatever your guidance is in terms of doing that, but really understanding who you are, and then especially actually going back and doing this thing again, like you said, when effectively you're retracing the steps you've done, whether it's changing your job or getting out of a previous job or starting another business. If you've obviously got those fears again about how that could impact your life again, and I just think to have the strength to go inside and then just still follow what you need, I think is the best advice you can give anyone. So I think you were very lucky to be given that at that particular time, and as I know from the outside in, it's obviously the best advice that you could have had, because since then life has been very, very successful for you. So congratulations with that.
Thank you.
What advice would you give your younger self?
To take more chances. I lived a very small prescribed life for a really long time, because I was afraid to do something that was out of the norm. I was afraid to do something that was different than what everybody else was doing. And perhaps I would have, gotten to where I am now faster if I would have done that.
I guess that's true for all of us, isn't it? Just taking us out of our comfort zone and just seeing exactly where we are and what we can do. That really does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What does your future look like?
I always say that you're creating your future, and I'm sure I've heard this somewhere, and that's where I picked it up from. I'm not trying to take credit for this by any means. But you're creating your future through the actions that you take today. And so I really feel like what my future looks like is what today looks like. And the chances that I'm taking, the risks that we're taking in the business, the trips that we're planning, the travel that we do, the time we spend with our families, the time that we spend together, the time that we enjoy the outdoors, our passions, doing what we love, working hard, making an impact, the domino effect. That's what today looks like for me. And my only hope is that that's what the future will continue to look like. And, I'm definitely all about preparing and planning for the future, but I also, after reading The Power of Now, probably about 8 years ago, I try to stay pretty focused in the now.
I think that's such a wonderful thing, and I love the fact that it's not about it needs to look like this, it needs to be this, we're going to be here, we're going to be doing this. It's about the experience and that continuation, like I said, of now. I think is wonderful. That's a great thing for us all to remember as we move through each day, which is the one thing that we do actually have control over, which is I really, really love that idea. So what podcast, book, video, film, song, or any resource that has had the biggest impact on your life, and why? And I guess there may be more than one of those that has really had an impact for you.
Yeah. Definitely, I mean, I just mentioned The Power of Now. I read that book at a pretty, like, I don't know if fragile is the right word, but I was just going through like a lot of life changes and my mindset and how I was being was very much like stuck in the past or, kind of daydreaming about the future. And after reading The Power of Now, I just couldn't help but think like, Kate, how did you not think of this before? Like, how could you not appreciate what's happening right now? Why are you obsessed with what the past looks like? Or why are you trying to dictate or just sit and dream about what the future might be like? Why not take an action today? Why not focus on what's happening right now and enjoy and embrace that? So that certainly had a big impact on me. And, I would say kind of on the time travel like aspect, not time travel, but just time. Um, I've read Essentialism probably like 5 or 6 times by Greg McKeown, and it's a really fantastic book about priority, like what the word priority actually means and how we use it so loosely to try and encompass multiple things, which kind of goes against what the word actually means, that, there should be one singular priority, not priorities. And, the idea that every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else, and really getting straight with how you're spending and leveraging your time. And that has certainly been a very powerful resource for me as an entrepreneur, thinking about, the 80-20 rule, what time I'm putting into my business, what time I'm putting into myself, what time I'm giving to my family and my friends. And so Essentialism has also been a really great resource for me.
I can really resonate with that as well, especially as I'm sort of beginning to multitask more with the podcast in my professional playing career and teaching and various things. It really splitting that time, but really being definite about how you want to do that is certainly something that I'm getting to grips more, even more and more as we go through. Which so I can really identify with that one. So, what's the best way for people to find out more about you if they want to dig deeper and find out more of the Kate Erickson that we haven't quite managed to cover yet?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that we do is on our website, EOFire.com. And if you go to our About page, have a little bit of background there about myself and, kind of digging deeper into some of the things we touched on today, how I kind of got to where I am right now. And of course, if anybody is so inclined to reach out to me via email, I definitely welcome that. I'm Kate at EOFire.com.
That's fantastic. And thank you, Kate, so much for sharing your wisdom and allowing us to learn from all your fantastic experience. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks so much, Mark.
Thanks for listening to the Learning on Fire podcast. For more information, please visit educationonfire.com and follow the links from the homepage. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.